Hi everyone. So in today's lesson, what we're going to be doing is learning a little bit more about fonts. How to format text more precisely. Um, what I've done to start off with is just grab a paragraph of text and I've put it into a P block down the bottom. Okay, so with just that text, which is what appears on the screen, just to start you off. Now, if we're targeting, and I'm not going to bother putting a class, I'm just going to set it to the P values. If we're targeting it, the most common setting is the actual font. Now, you already know this command as being font family. And what you'll see is once you have your font family and you set it, and let's say we pick one of these, that basically changes the font. But if you have a look here, there's actually very few options in the grand scheme of things. There's probably 12 to 15 options available. So if we choose, let's say that one, for example, and we get our different looking text. Now, one of the things is because that choice is limited, it's probably worth showing you how to get many more fonts. Now, there are a whole heap of fonts that are available on Google for free. So if I maximize my screen for a second. Okay, so if you just put in fonts for Google, there's a whole heap of them that are available. So you can choose any number of ones to get a really different look if you want, depending on what you want to choose. And they just go for miles, and you can search for them if it's a particular font that you found. So, for example, if you see a website and it has a particular font, you can search for that font, and it's probably likely to be here. Not always, but most of the time. So, if we do one, the one that's very common is Roboto. So, if we click on that one, for example, what you will see is that we have a sample of the standard Roboto, and then we have different weights and different styles depending upon within that family. Generally speaking, a weight of about 400 is pretty normal as being the normal weight, and anything below that generally looks a little thin, and then you're getting into bolding and that sort of thing. Now, if we want to get that, let's say we like this font and we want to go with that one, what we can do is we can click on here, and you can click on multiple ones if you want a particular style. But if we click on here, what you can do is that there is some code here that you can insert into your file to be able to get that font and make it available. So if we take a copy of that, we can then take it and put it into our into our code to be able to get that particular font. Now, when you're putting this particular font in, if you have a look carefully, it's actually a HTML tag with a whole heap of other information. It's a link tag. Now, link tags should not go into the style area. Okay, they should go. They should go somewhere. They should go above the style tab rather than in it, because they will not work if they're in it. Now, once you have that, so all that is really doing, in much the same way, if you have a look at the code, is that it is giving you a reference or to where that information is, so that it can be accessed by the driver. So once we have that, then we can actually change our, let's say we wanted Roboto, then we can just change that and it should appear in the list. Okay, and it does. Okay, and then if we update it, we've got our Roboto all set up. So that's one way to get extra fonts. The next thing that we mentioned, which I think is not really new to what you did, is font size, which I won't bother going through, and font weight. Now, with font weight, we just want to take it a step further. So with font weight, you'll see there's all of these numbers. So you might, once you've seen that website we just looked at, you'll see that basically that gives you a pretty good idea of what the weight is going to be. So if I select 400, it's really not going to change it because that is the standard weight. But if I want to go much heavier, then you can see what kind of effect it's going to have. So whereas if you have bold, it just takes a standard level. So using those numbers gives you a much greater degree of control if someone's being particularly picky about the whole thing. Okay, so that's basically fonts. So I'm going to get rid of font weight because I don't particularly want it to be bold. The other thing that you can also do is text alignment, which is a new one we haven't talked about. So text alignment just means that you can usually just center it or left align it or right align it. So now the text is centralized. And I think it's left or right, but it could be end. Sometimes it's end and start, but let's try that. Yep, so it's left and right. So you're able to adjust the text in any direction. The other thing that is also that you can do that does give a bit of a different feel to the text is the line height. And the line height is basically the height between the text. So if we went, let's just say 10 pixels, just to have a look at what it does. It's very close, and then you might decide that you want to have 20, and so it's basically just the spacing. And then if we want it really wide, 30, you can see that it's quite spread, so you can control that to some degree. Okay, so that's just standard text. Now the other requirements that you sometimes might come into, I'll put this in left because it just doesn't agree with me, is you sometimes might be required to put in a special character, something that you don't know. So for example, if we needed to put in a copyright sign, that we obviously can't do that off the keyboard, so there's got to be a way to be able to do it. So the way that we can do that is, this is called I think it's a CSS entity. Okay, now I'm just going to search many entities, and so these are all entities to create certain specific characters. So if I want, and I'm going to go back a step, so if I wanted entity for copyright, for example, hopefully it gives it to us. So that's the copyright symbol. We need the CSS code. Okay, we can take that, and that's going to allow us to see a copyright symbol. So I'm going to put that at the end of the text that we had. I'm going to be a bit lazy. Okay, and didn't recognize it. There we go. Try that. No, didn't recognize it. What did I do wrong? Maybe it's HTML code. Try it again. It's not recognizing it at present. Yep, that looks like about right. So if we try again, so you're getting a copyright symbol. So that's how you can get special symbols, really weird things like pounds and whatever, pounds or dots or whatever it is that you need. Basically, you just need to look it up on the internet, find the code. So it's the HTML code rather than the CSS code. Sorry about that. And that's going to allow you to be able to get any symbol that you need. Now, the next thing that we also want to highlight is there will be some occasions where, for example, if we want to do something else to formatting, so for example for HTML, if I wanted to make HTML bold, I can do it in a couple of different ways. I'm going to hit return so that, okay, so a couple of the ways that I can do it is that I can put a tag within a tag. So I can do that by doing something. There is a tag within HTML called strong, and I can put that information within the code, so within the text that I want to be bolded, and what will happen is it will create an effect like that. Now the problem with using so there's a lot of tags that we don't necessarily teach you. The problem with using this particular tag is that yes, it bolds, but you've got no control over the extent to which it bolds and that sort of thing. So the other way to deal with this is using a tag, and there's ones for different types, but the other way is to surround the tag with one called span instead of strong. And then span, so if we return it to it, span does nothing at this point. However, and I could set a class for it, I'm not going to bother, but however, you can then target that specific HTML or class, depending on as the case may be, and alter the appearance of it. So if I want to make, for example, the font of that particular one much larger, I can adjust the text, the settings within the font. So for example, I want to make the font size, let's say 25 pixels, which will be significantly larger than what it is there currently. I can do that, and so what that allows me to do is target text within a specific paragraph and change the formatting, and the same formatting that I use for any text can apply in this case. And obviously, if I was using span in several places on the website, I would need to put a class in and target it on the basis of the class rather than the span. So that gives you a lot greater control for the text as it appears. Okay, so that's pretty much text formatting in a nutshell. And there are obviously always heaps of other settings that we could teach you, but try the exercises at the end of the lesson, and we'll catch you in the next video.